Yeah, I'm not yet sharing my screen, but let me do
Okay.
it now so that. Kingsley, did you get my message?
I haven't checked. I haven't checked yet. I should check probably in a minute.
Yeah, in this chat, yeah. Check it right now. All right, guys, can you see my screen right now?
Yes, sir.
All right, so what I was saying is always go above and beyond. So when we introduce concepts, or when we talk, for instance, Gerard told you guys to watch the networking videos. Within 4 weeks, you should be able to have gone through all those concepts based on what I told you guys. Unless if you're able to put in 4 hours every day, that should be good for 4 hours each day for the next 4 weeks for you to guys to finish off those videos and have a pretty good understanding of the concepts that are being under the concepts that are being taught. It puts you at a huge advantage whereby you are not starting off from zero. You are starting from somewhere, so you have more exposure, which is the bigger thing that you need. So that within 6 months, you're job ready, and you have more depth about how the field works. All right. I'll start from this slide. All right. Okay, I have a question. If you have two devices on the same network, do they need a default gateway to communicate? So we talk because before we were talking about subnetting, and we say there are two portions of an IP address, and which portions were those? That's the question. What are the portions of an IP that we have in an IP address?
The network portion and the host portion.
All right, we do have the network portion and the host portion. And what are the uses? The network portion and the host portion.
So let me try. So the network portion help, just like an analogy, like if a postman is coming to a particular place, so the network portion can be described as the street address. So first of all, it helps you to know exactly where you are going. And the host portion is pretty much, let's say, the house number. So let's say if there is a device on a network, I mean, the network is huge. There are so many devices. So if, for instance, a particular IP address, once you know the host portion, you know exactly where you are routing traffic, and the network portion, you know where exactly you are routing traffic. So once you get there, the host portion will let you know exactly where on that particular network that you are sending packet data onto.
It will help you know where
you are routing your traffic to.
The host that you're routing your traffic to. Right?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so guys, these concepts right now should be kind of like, still fresh in your minds because we use analogies. So network portion, it helps you to know the network on which your device is located. As we're going to see, today we're going to go a bit deeper into subnet masks, and the host portion identifies the host on that network. So when a router is routing traffic, it routes traffic. So when a router is routing traffic, it routes that traffic onto the network. I can hear feedback. I'm not sure why.
It looks like there's an echo. in your speech.
Yeah, let me see. Do I have browsers? Okay, just a moment. Let me see if I do have any browsers open. All right, guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, and can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, cool. I don't know why the echo is there, but hopefully. All right, we talked about subnet masks, guys, and we also talked about classes, IP address classes. And we said we said class A, B, and C networks have IPs. IP classes have default networks, also known as neutral masks or natural masks, not neutral. And we said class A is a 255.0.0.0. Class B is 255.255.0.0. And class C is 255.255.255.0. And these allow a computer to determine if a device it wants to communicate with is a remote device or a local device. By remote here, I mean that device is not on the same network as that computer or as that device. And on the local device, I mean a device that is on the same network as that device. So do you guys understand this nomenclature we used?
Yes.
All right. All right. If computers are on the same subnet, they can communicate directly without the need of a subnet. If on different subnets, PCs would forward traffic to their default gateway. So if we have computers on the same subnet, they can communicate directly without the need of a gateway. But if the computers are on different subnets, and I'll come back to this slide later and explain to you guys what I'm trying to explain here. But I'm just introducing the concept so that when we go forward, we shall come back here and go through this again, and you guys will be like, you'll see the light bulb going off. So if the computer's on the same subnet, they can communicate directly to each other. But if they're on different subnets, PCs will forward traffic to their default gateways, and from their default gateways, that traffic will be forwarded through the routers out of their subnet, so they can communicate with other devices that are not on that subnet. So guys, this is an example. So we say that a subnet mask is used to determine the network and host portion. So we say if a device is remote, that means it's on a different subnet. If it's local, that means it's on the same subnet. Okay, let's use this example right here. 10.1.1.1 and 10.1.2.1. So the 10 range is which class is that?
Class A.
Good, class A. And for class A addresses, which one is the network portion? So which one is the net?
The 10.
That's octet. Yeah, the 10.
Okay, the 10 is the network portion, right, guys?
Yes.
Do you all agree that the 10 is the network portion?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, so this is 10.1.1.1, and this is 10.1.2.1. So are these devices on the same network, or are they on different networks?
They're the same network.
So these are the same network. Remember, guys, we use the analogy of the street. So since these devices are on the same network, on the same street, like we did before, right here, let me pull up that. This is slide number before I forget when I'm coming back. I don't want to be looking for it. 46. So guys, these devices 10.1.1.1 and 10.1.2.1 are on the same network because we said for class A addresses, the first field right here, or the first position right here, is the network portion. So since 10.1.1.1 and 10.1.2.1 are on the same network, or they are on the same street, they are able to directly route packets within this within their networks without going out of this network using the default gateway. Guys, does that make sense? So if two devices or more are on the same network, they can route or transfer data from one device from 1 to 2 or from 2 to 3 without getting out of this network through a default gateway to share traffic because they're on the same network. So it's a same principle that I'm explaining here, that these two devices right here are on the same network. So they just share information with each other. But if they were in this different subnets, they have to use a router to be able to share that traffic with maybe another device, maybe let me say device C, which is on a different network. So it's the same concept that I'm talking about here. So 10.1.1 and 10.1.2.1 are on the same subnet. If they're the same, if they're using a /16 mask, don't mind about that. I'm going to show you guys what that means. They are on different subnets if they are using a /24 mask.
Senior Charles,
Uh-huh.
sorry, one quick question. I want to clear my confusion before we move on. So I know you did mention that a subnet is used to differentiate between the network and the host. But
Yes.
on the first slide, the very first line, you said 10 points. No, that you were on.
Oh, this right here.
Yes. So you said the 10.111 and the 10.121 are on the same subnet. So I'm trying to understand the subnets and the network. Are they the same terminology or is different? Because based on the examples that we went through right now, that you said the 10 points, these two IP addresses can share resources because they're on the same network. But on the sentence, you made mention the same subnet.
Yeah,
So subnet and the network, are they the same?
So they are different. They are different. So here I introduced a different concept that I've not talked about yet.
Okay, so
okay, I introduced a CIDR concept, classless interdomain routing concept that I've not yet talked about before. So this right here, I shouldn't have included it for you guys. So
okay.
yeah,
Thank
so this let's go ahead. By the end of this tutorial, you'll have gotten to know what that means. But yes, I shouldn't have put it here. So
Yes,
yeah, a network mask allows the device to determine which portion. I've said that already. This is a repeat. So all right, guys, if the device is on a local subnet and does not require the use of it, this is a repeat. All right, guys, let's use this as an illustration. Let me talk about site. Let's talk about site, and then I'll go back and talk about the concepts above. So there's a concept called classless interdomain routing. This concept was introduced in 1993. And this replaced the use of classful IP addressing. So the CIDR or classless interdomain routing introduced variable length subnet masks. So that means instead of a subnet mask, and the side annotation uses the 10.0.0.0/8 notation instead of the 10.0.0.02550 notation. So let me assume, let me give an example. For instance, let me give this example right here to explain the classless interdomain routing principle. So before class CIDR or classless interdomain routing, we had classful address masks. That means, for instance, class A, we said how many possible hosts do we have in class A?
16 million.
Guys, right here, 16 million. And how many do we have in class B? It's right there, 65,534. And how many possible hosts do we have in class C? 254. So let me assume I have a company and we have 3,000 hosts. What is the best class of to choose from all these ranges right here? Which one would I choose? Which IP address should I choose?
Class B.
Class B. All right. If I choose class B and class B have 65. I'm hearing the echo again. So if I have class B and class B has 65,534, what is 65,000 minus 3,000? What'd you get?
62,534.
All right. So when I've used when the 3,000 hosts have been assigned addresses, that means I'll be remaining with 62,000 unused IP addresses on the network. Would that be wasteful or would that be resourceful?
Wasteful.
Guys, that is wasteful. So that's where the principle of classless interdomain routing comes into play. So, because remember guys, we say the class is /8. Remember that concept? Because the first portion the network portion has 8 bits, right?
Yes, sir.
And then B is /16 because the host portion, the first two, the first two positions have 8 bits each, and and those two octets make 16. And class C is a /24 because we know the network portion makes up the /24. So I'm going to go ahead and explain the CIDR concept again and show you guys how, and clarify how it solves the issue. So if we have a company and say we need IP addresses for 3,000 hosts, but we do have a class B, which gives us 65,000, and a class C, which gives us 254. That means we have to use various class C addresses because we do have a class C that starts from about 170 all the way to about 190 something. So instead of, for instance, using a 172.16.0.0/16, we use 172.16.0.0/28, which gives us 4,094 hosts. So I know you guys are confused about here. So let's first dissect this a bit. Let me get that drawing tool. All right. If is in which class of IPs is 172.16.0.0? Where does it fall? Is it under class A? Is it class B? Is it class C?
Class B.
It's class B. So, but we know that class B, based on the classful kind of notation has to be /16, not 28, right?
Yes.
And that gives us about 65 hosts. Yes, is that true? Is that true? We just did it right here. We just did it in this example right here. Where did I? Guys, I explained it here where I said class B gives us at least 65,000 hosts. Based on this one here, the /16, because it's 2 to the power 16. But based on classless interdomain routing, when you use a classless interdomain routing, you are able to increase the host portion, I mean the network portion of your IP portion of any address that you're using, so that you are able to use just a few of those hosts instead of using all the 65,000 hosts. So when I do a /28, remember from 172.16.0.0 gives us 32 bits. But when I do a /28, it is 32 minus 28. What do I get when I do 32 minus 28?
Huh?
All right, let me go.
14.
Someone mute yourself. So guys, we say that an IP address has 32 bits, right?
Yes.
We have agreed on that.
Yes.
But at the same time, we said, for instance, in this example, we're using a class B. And the class B, based on the class 4 notation, gives us 65,000 hosts, 65,534 hosts. But we also said there's a concept called classless interdomain routing that was introduced in 1993. And this concept replaced the class 4 IP addressing in such a way that we're able to give variable length subnet masks. So instead of the subnet mask being, let me use the word burnt in or being permanent, whereby, for instance, class A is a /8, we can adjust this from a /8 to a /28. We can adjust this from a /8 to a /30, or we can adjust this from a /8 to a /24, so that the hosts we can assign fewer hosts on a network if that network requires fewer host addresses. Guys, does that make sense? At least what I've talked about right now, does that make sense? When I talk about CIDR?
Yes.
Yes.
Don't say yes, because I'm going to be asking you to explain it back to me. All right, explain to me. Okay, someone, if you have an, okay, I'll correct you if I feel like maybe you need more pointers. So someone explain to me what you understand from what I've just said, using this page right here where we are.
Okay, let me try.
Sorry, I do have a pen, right? So I'll use this pen. All right, let's go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me try. So the concept of like subnet max as we know it, using the subnet max of 255, let's say class A subnet max of 255.0.0.0. Based on the calculation, the number of hosts that becomes available when we go through that calculation, so over 65, let's say 67 million.
Okay, 16 million.
60 million hosts, which is very wasteful resources.
All right.
So that's why in 1993, they came up with the concept of classless interdomain routing.
Okay.
so that instead of having like, let's say 16 million hosts, that no one will ever use that kind of host. They introduced the concept of classless interdomain routing.
Okay,
so
that's good.
Right now with this, they are just looking at, they are pretty much replacing those notations. Okay, this is where I got stuck with the number 8. So instead of having 255.0.0.0 notation, now they are just replacing with number 8.
All right, good. At least I know where you guys are. Are you guys on the same page? Are you lost where Jonathan is lost? Am I muted?
Yes, sir.
Really?
No. I'm answering like the first question you asked, not
Oh,
be...
all right. All right. They didn't replace it with the number 8. But this number here, 8, can vary because the length of this length right here, the variable length subnet mask, this number can vary. So that instead of, so let me assume, for instance, that /8 gives us 16 million, right?
Yes.
Do you guys want us to calculate that? So, guys, okay, a 10.0.0.0 address. How many hosts can we get from that?
16 million.
Guys, we can get 16 million. But let's assume we are a big company, but we need maybe not all the 16 million, but we need just maybe half of those. So what are we going to do to get maybe 8 million?
That one is...
Guys, to do that, we're going to play around with a classless interdomain routing. Based on the number we put here, this number can either be 8 or 16, 24, or 32. So, someone mute yourself. So, someone mute yourself. Bama, maybe.
No, oh yeah, sorry.
How do I rub this away? Erase. Okay, good. All right, guys, based on that concept, so based on that same concept whereby, for instance, I do have, based on the concept of classful routing, I do have now an IP address of this 16.0.0. This gives me 65K addresses, right?
Yes, sir.
But when I'm using classless interdomain routing, I'm able to increase the the network portion when I do a /28. That means, what is the host portion that's left? Remember, the entire address has how many bits? This right here.
32.
Guys, this entire address has 32 bits. Can you guys agree on that? That an IP address has 32 bits?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good. But when I do a /28, what am I trying to imply? What does this /28 represent? Does it represent the network portion, or does it represent the host portion?
Yeah, that's my confusion, sir.
I think this is represent the network portion.
Good. It represents the network portion according to, let me go back up here and show you guys what we did before. when we're doing IPs, I don't forget this page. Let me see which page that it is that I'm on right now, so that when I'm coming back, I don't forget this thing. 55. Guys, when we're doing IP addresses, let's go to, for instance, class. All right, we said we do have a network portion and a host portion, right? So for this right here, for instance, for this IP address right here, if I needed to represent it entirely, I would do a /16. And this /16 would give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So if I'd introduced the /16 at the start without explaining classless interdomain routing, it wouldn't have made a lot of sense. But does this make sense right now? How I'm representing the network portion within this address right here?
Yes, sir. Makes sense.
Yes, sir.
All right, so right now, if this makes sense, let's go back to our slide 55. Right here. So guys, I said here we say that 17.16.0.0. Guys, always mute yourself after answering. Has 32 bits.
Yeah, can I?
So we said it has 32 bits, right?
Yes.
All right. So, and we said the number that is on this side right here, the /28, can be any number. It doesn't have to be 28. But this number represents which portion of the IP address?
The host portion. No, the network. The network portion.
Good. It represents the network portion. So if this entire IP address right here, 17.16.0.0, and it's 32 bits, it has 32 bits, how can we get the host portion if this is /28?
You take the difference.
The host portion will be 8, right? No.
Will be 4.
No.
What's
14.
What's the number? What is 32 minus 28?
It's not 14. Huh?
32 minus 28.
That's 4.
Well, that's 4.
Yes, guys, it's 14 or 4?
4.
It's 4. And guys, do you remember the formula we used to find the number of hosts?
Number of hosts.
Yes.
What's that formula?
So the 32, which is the total number of bits for an IP4 version, minus the number minus the network number.
Okay.
Then you get the host.
So you get the bits, not the hosts.
The host, the bits.
The bits. And how do we calculate the number of hosts from the bits? We did that before in yesterday's class.
You take 2 to the power number to the number of bits, host bits.
Good. 2 to the power the number of host bits. And what's the number of host bits we have in this example?
We have 4.
4.
Yeah.
What's the possible number of hosts from a /28 address? Let me use my calculator. This gives us 16.
16, yeah.
So guys, from this right here, we are able to get 16 hosts, but why am I getting 494?
I think it's because you have done some, is it subnetting of the host portion?
Sorry?
You've done, you've taken away some portion. I don't know how to explain it really, but I'm just guessing maybe that you've used the subnetting in the host portion. So you've taken away some part of the host portion, the bits, and use it for subnetting, which has given you the possibility of having more hosts on that network.
Actually, let me verify something here because I think my explanation is off on this one here. So this part is right, how to get the host portion, but I need to take it back to, or I'll come back to this. I think I also confused myself on this part. But let me come back to this. I'll get the answer for this part right here and get back to you guys. Is Gerard on the channel right now? Gerard?
I'm not sure he's there.
All right. Okay, I'll get back to you on this one here, on the 4094. I think there's something I'm getting wrong on my calculation, on my explanation on this one here. But I'll get back on this explanation. So let's go through the three-way handshake and how the three-way handshake works. All right. During a three-way handshake, devices must establish a connection with a peer system before data transmission can take place. So one device initiates a connection that must be accepted by the other machine. So for this to happen, a three-way handshake has to take place. The host initiating the session sets the sync flag on the TCP header of the initial segment sent to host B. The port the sender wants to connect is also specified. So a sync request is sent by the host initiating the connection, and also the port on which the host wants to make that connection to is specified. For instance, if it's HTTP, we know that was going to be port number 80. So during that time, a sync request is sent from the client to the server. And when the server gets that, the server has to acknowledge that it has received that sync request. After acknowledging to the client sends back an ARC. So the first part of it is a sync that is sent to the server. The client sends a sync to the server requesting for the connection to happen. And then the server guys has to acknowledge that it has received the sync. So it sends back a sync acknowledgement. And after sending back the sync acknowledgement, we do have an acknowledgement from the TCP client to the server. And when that happens, a session is established between the TCP client and the TCP server, and those two are able to share information with each other. Guys, does this make sense? Does the three-way handshake explanation make sense?
Can you please take it back again, please?
Which part? So when two devices want to communicate, they have to establish a session between the two of them. So for two devices to establish a session, one of those devices has to initiate. So this is a client. So if this is a client and this is a server, that means this client right here needs information from this server. So what this client will do, it will send a sync request or synchronization to this server. When this server right here receives that sync request, it sends back an acknowledgement. It acknowledges that it received this first sync. So the first one is a sync, but the second is a sync arc. So in the three-way handshake, the first step is a sync. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
The second step is the acknowledgement of the sync. So the client wants to communicate with the server or wants to get some information from the server. And before any information or data is transferred or shared between these two, there has to be a session established between the both of them. And the first step is this client requesting, hey, let's sync up. And when the server gets that request to sync, it has to tell this client, hey, I've received your request to sync. So it has to acknowledge, ACK, acknowledging that it received the sync. So when this TCP client receives the sync ACK, it sends back an acknowledgement as the third step. And when it sends back that acknowledgement, that's when this connection right here is established between these two machines and they can share information. So this is a three-way handshake because guess what, guys? We say TCP is a connection-oriented protocol, right?
Yes.
That's why I was sharing and showing you guys the difference between TCP and UDP. And we say TCP is connection oriented. And I've showed you how that connection is established between the TCP client and the TCP server by a sync request being sent and then a sync acknowledgement being and then the TCP server responding with a sync acknowledgement to the client, and then an acknowledgement going back to the TCP server on that particular port where that information is going to be shared, or through which that information is going to be shared on this server, or transferred from the server back to the client, or from the client to the server. Anything that you guys want me to explain more on this part? I think, was it Jarvis?
I think this is clear now.
All right. So that's the explanation right here. All right, guys, we are going to talk about basic troubleshooting in networking. So troubleshooting is identifying a problem and then solving that problem. That's what troubleshooting in IT is. And one of the ways you can troubleshoot is by using the OSI model. You can start from bottom up or from top down. So let's look at the OSI model and see how we can do that. So for instance, someone comes to you and tells you, my laptop is not working. How Can you use the OSI model to resolve their issue? So I come and tell you my laptop is not working, or I cannot reach the internet. What are some of the ways you? What are some of the steps that you can take to resolve the issue? Using the OSI model.
Yeah, so if someone comes to me and said like the laptop is not working using the OSI model, I will start from the first step, which is the physical layer, and check to see if maybe there is okay, so I think the laptop is not working is broad. Is it that you can't turn it on or what? So
all right, there you go. You're troubleshooting right now. You're asking. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay.
yeah, so if maybe the laptop, I'll start from the physical layer and check if the laptop is not turned on, maybe there might be a dislocated battery or there might be something. So once I check all that and there is everything right with it, then I turn it on. Then I come to, let's say the second layer, which is like the data link layer.
Okay.
So if it's not working, is it because it's not able to connect to the internet, or is
what,
it?
What do we find at the data link layer?
So the data link layer is basically connecting like cables. So let's say I will check to find out if, for instance, if you want to get to the internet, I'll check to see if like the RJ cables, the RJ45 cables currently plugged to the Ethernet cord.
Okay.
Then if that one is also working, then I move on to the networking layer.
Okay.
Or if that one is working, then I'll move on to the networking layer. So the networking layer, the question that I'll ask myself mostly is with the NIC. Is the NIC turned on or off? Maybe if the person says he's not receiving internet, maybe the NIC is off.
That is a bit deeper, but if they're not receiving internet, what's the basic command used to test connectivity?
Ping.
Ping. All right, cool. So what would you ping, for instance?
So I will ping for his the person's like IP address to see if maybe using the command prompts, I'll use IP config. Or
okay, let's say you would ping a system which is outside his network, or you would ping another device on the same network to test connectivity.
yes.
Okay, next step. All right.
Yeah, so from the networking, then you come to the transport layer.
Okay.
So that's when the TCP and the UDP. So so the TCP and the UDP. So probably I'll maybe try to see if I can connect to like a server.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that one works. Then you go to the session layer.
All right. So usually, after going through the after, for instance, the session layer would be, for instance, trying to go into the browser. So that means if, for instance, if the ping worked on the network part of it, and you're able to ping a device, after that you're like, okay, let me see, let me maybe try to open up a website, and you go to your browser and open up www.whatever.com. And if you're able to reach, so in most cases, for instance, presentation layer, which is about formatting, is not a big problem, because, you know, if you're opening up an application and maybe it's a different software that you need, or you opened up maybe a music file using Notepad, or you opened up a file using the wrong format, this is easy to figure out, and most people don't get that issue. So for the session bit of it, you try to go to yahoo.com on your browser to see if you can establish the session. All right, Jonathan. Next.
Yeah, so in terms of like the application and the presentation layer, this has to do more with the network, like let's say, for instance, with the application and the presentation layer, if I'm sending an email, so maybe using my web browser, I'm sending an email to, let's say, Mr. Jude. So once I type in like whatever I'm trying to send, and so okay, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. So let's say if I send the email and it goes through, and maybe Mr. Jude tells me that, oh, well, the email that you sent me, you were trying to send, like, let's say, a video file, but I didn't get the video, I just received an audio. Then maybe I'll try and see, maybe there was a problem with the presentation layer.
Okay.
Maybe the format that I sent, for some reason, when it was going to Mr. Jude's email, the format changed. So maybe there was a problem with the presentation.
That's a good explanation that you just gave. Okay.
Then with the application layer, it deals mostly with processes and protocols. So let's say, for instance, if I'm trying to send, like, let's say, for instance, if I go to a certain website that is not secured, and I've been told that, okay, hackers are able to have been hacked into my network, then I go and check whether did I configure whatever the server using port 443 or port 80.
Okay. That doesn't talk about that, doesn't relate to hackers, but yeah, let's just talk about the ports. All right. All right, yeah, Jonathan, that was a good explanation. At least you were able to go through. All right, guys, Jonathan just gave us an example of how you can use each layer of the OSI model to troubleshoot and try to solve an issue that a user may be encountering. That means he went through from the physical layer. You check the actual device itself. Is a device functional? And then the data link and the connection, and then the network in regard to the things like IP and internet connections. Is it able to route or to transmit data? And then is it able to maintain sessions? How is that data being presented? Or is it an application issue itself that an application is not opening up? So that was an example of how someone can go through troubleshooting, which is identifying a problem and then resolving that problem. So we just use the OSI model, and then he went from bottom up, but you can also start from the top, from the application, and then you start going down through all the presentation and then the session, all the way down to the physical layer. So guys, there are 7 steps in, this is not written in stone. This is just an example of how you can go about troubleshooting, like a methodology, like how you should be thinking when you're going about troubleshooting. First of all, you have to define the problem. After defining the problem, you collect the information. After collecting the information, you analyze the information. After analyzing the information, you eliminate any potential causes or anything that may not be supporting your information that you analyzed up here. And then after that, you have to propose a hypothesis. You have to test the hypothesis. For instance, you say, okay, I think this server is not communicating to the outside world because maybe, let me give an example of it's not going through the right port. So that's the hypothesis that you get to propose, and then you get to test the hypothesis. Maybe, okay, let me try to use another port and see if instead of going through .8 colon 80, maybe colon 443 is going to resolve the issue. And after that, guys, the last step is solve and document. Why do we document? Do you guys know why we document after solving the issue? All right, let's imagine we are all in the, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's imagine we are all on the same team, and then you go ahead and solve the problem, but you don't document about how you went about solving that problem. What happens when someone else experiences the problem?
I can make an attempt. I think you document because it's an IT service management process. So when the problem comes the next time and someone explains it to you, it becomes a known problem. So you can go back to the previous solution which you've used.
Actually, guys, this is not for you. This is for your teammates. You know, for instance, you don't want you want your team to be wasting time on the same issue. For instance, if Jonathan just explained to you what he has been explaining, if he gets a solution, but he just keeps quiet or he doesn't document it somewhere, and then maybe 6 months down the road, we're experiencing the same issue. Instead of just going to the exact documentation of how we went about doing it and what he eliminated, the potential causes that didn't really didn't pass a hypothesis. So it's kind of like for your teammates not to go through the entire process, because guess what? He defined the problem, he collected information, he analyzed the information. Maybe he spent 3 hours doing this, maybe he spent 4 hours. Do you want someone else to spend the same amount of time, your teammate, 4 hours doing this, yet you guys have everything? This can save you a lot of time. That's what I'm saying. Documentation saves a lot of time and saves your teammates from going through the same process again. So we have to define the problem. So by defining the problem, we have to clearly articulate or define the problem, what the problem is. For instance, someone may say, by saying something like, the problem is, by saying maybe the internet is broken. I mean, that is general. If someone says the internet is broken, that is a very general kind of like classification. Like that's someone who has not had any IT experience. So you have to be particular about what the issue is. Maybe the PC cannot get to a specific website. Maybe you cannot get to google.com. So state what the problem is. The PC cannot ping, or the browser cannot open up a specific website. So you are trying to be as specific as you can when you're stating the problem. Does that make sense? And after that, you have to collect information around that problem. How do you collect information about the problem? You interview the user. So if I'm helping you to resolve an issue that started today in the morning, I can ask you, okay, what did you install today? Are there any updates that happened? That maybe, so you try to poke around and see, maybe is there something different that the user did before the issue happened? Because guess what? It was happening before, but all of a sudden they're having this issue. So you need to ask the user questions so that you are able to get answers and be able to help you to define the problem better. All right. So sometimes you may use commands. Remember, Jonathan, we say things like ping, or you can also use other debugging commands. And once we collect that information, we analyze the information. So we do some research and we go through and analyze the information. And then we start to eliminate potential causes, like things that just do not make sense. So you're like, okay, I was able to ping and it went through. So it doesn't make sense because guess what? I'm pinging but I'm able to reach the outside world. But when maybe when I do a www.google.com, it's working. So using those steps, you should be able to eliminate things that don't make sense. So after that, you propose a hypothesis, what the most likely cause may be. And also within the, for instance, if someone, for instance, tells you maybe the network is dragging, or maybe a certain server is too slow, you have to weigh the options, because sometimes rebooting a server can help it run more faster. But if it's a server that's being used to access network resources during business hours, guys, do you think that would be a good thing to do? Would you rather reboot a server during business hours, or would you let it run slow and then you reboot it later after hours? So you kind of like have to talk to different people on your team, or people from maybe other teams, like maybe engineering, or maybe people from other teams, maybe like security or quality, QA, quality analysis, quality assurance, and trying to say, okay, is someone using the server at the moment, or what impact? Maybe do some of our clients have files that they're accessing on those servers that they need during business hours? So you weigh the options when you're doing that part. And then afterwards, guys, you test the hypothesis by implementing the solution. So for instance, if your solution is, I need to restart the server, and after restarting, the processes are going to run faster, or the network is going to run faster, that is something that you test out in step number 6. And after that, guys, the last one, we said you have to solve and document. That's implementing the solution. So you solve the problem and document what you did. So those are the seven steps when you are trying to troubleshoot an issue on your network. Guys, does this make sense? Is this straightforward?
Yes, sir.
All right. Questions. So I'm going to explain this after the break. I'll go and review this concept right here. It should be about how the numbering goes to 255, and then it winds back to 1, and then after that it goes to 255, and then goes back to 1. So I'll go and get this sorted out so that we can be able to clarify it, so you guys get a comprehensive answer for this part about classless interdomain routing. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of the first part of the networking. So in the next part, we're going to use Cisco Packet Tracer, where we're going to configure devices, simulating configuring devices using Cisco Packet Tracer or GNFS3. So we shall see which one is better, but it's going to put together all the knowledge that you've learned from the 2 slides that I've sent you guys. And based on that, you are going to have a take-home practical project that you're going to put together and connect devices together, and be able to set up a small home office for yourself with different devices communicating with each other. But it's not going to be hardware devices. It's going to be software devices that are configured using Packet Tracer. Any questions, guys? If you don't have questions, I'm about to start asking you guys some questions. Are you guys ready? Are you guys there? Is someone there?
Yes, please, we are here.
All right, let's start off. Okay, Jervis, what is a network? Jervis, are you there? All right, Bama, what is the network? Bama, are you there? Okay, let's go. Bismarck. Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Really?
Can hear you, sir.
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you.
Bismarck, is Bismarck there?
I can try, maybe.
Bismarck, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is a network? It's a computer network.
Can I try?
No, we're going around, so
Okay.
your turn will come. Everyone's turn will come. So Bismarck, what is it? What is a network? What is a computer network?
A computer network is a system that enables our computer interconnect so that we can communicate with other hosts and other systems so that we can have access to the internet, or we can have connection with other systems on the
All right. Let's see. Caesar, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to clarify on what a computer network is?
Computer network is where two or more computers connect or link together to communicate. That is
Good.
like when computer on the same or different network link together to communicate, share data or information.
All right, guys, just make it, always make sure you make it simple, you make it straightforward. We said a computer network is just, in its simplest form, two devices communicate to each other, sharing information. Guys, you have a network. And which kind of network is that? Let's go next one. Caesar, was that you? Emeka, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. If we have two computers connected to each other and sharing information, which kind of setting is that, or which kind of like configuration is that? Just two
Is it
devices,
peer-to-peer?
peer-to-peer. Good. And what is a node? Jervis, what's a node? N-O-D-E. In most cases, you hear people saying a node, a computer node. It's just so when we have two computers sharing information, a node is one of those computers. You can either call it a device, you can also call it a node. It's where a point of connection is established. So if a point of connection is established on my computer, that becomes one node. On the other side, that becomes a second node. So that's another term that's used to a node is another term that can be used for two devices connected to each other at the points where those two devices are connected to each other. They can also be referred as nodes. Okay, what is the network topology? I think we have done yes, top of my head. What is a network topology?
Network topology is the
Let me
way.
see. Is that Jonathan or Jude? Who is that?
Caesar.
Okay, Caesar. All right. Okay, what's a network topology?
The way computer are arranged on a specific network. For example, bus, star.
All right. It's the arrangement of our computers in a network. the way they're laid out, the physical layout. All right, guys. Jude, are you there? Jonathan, what is a router?
So a router is a device.
Is a network device. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a network device
Okay.
that is able to allow devices on a local network to talk to communicate
On a local network or in different networks?
on different networks to talk to other devices.
Can you use another word apart from talking?
Communicate.
Routing traffic.
Routing traffic
Mm-hmm.
to other networks.
Routing traffic. Guys, try to start using those words like routing traffic to other networks, not to talk to each other.
Yes,
So,
please.
all right, guys, who is next? So Jude is not answering. Ola, are you there? Ola, are you there?
He slacked us earlier. He said he'll be out for a second.
Oh, all right. All right, Bama, are you there?
Yeah.
What is the OSI reference model? First of all, what is OSI?
It's a model.
What is OSI? So first define what OSI is, and after defining OSI, what OSI is, tell me why they came up with the OSI model. I'll give you 10 seconds. And if you cannot do that, someone else, Bismarck, will try it. And then, okay, I'm giving you some time to think about that. What's the definition of the OSI model?
It's an open system interconnection.
What was that, Bismarck? Good. Open system interconnection. All right. And then can you explain to me what the OSI model is all about? Why was the OSI model proposed in the first place and implemented? What problem did it solve? What problem does the OSI model solve? So you may go into an interview thinking someone is going to ask you, explain to me the, explain. You may think someone is just going to ask you to ask you just what the different layers of the OSI model is. That's a straightforward way. But an interviewer may ask you the same question in a different way. What problem does the OSI model solve? What was there before the OSI model? That after the OSI model was established, that problem went away. Who wants to give it a shot?
The troubleshooting?
No, troubleshooting is just an extra. All right, guys, we talked about an OSI model is what? It's a standard, right?
Yes.
All right, what is a standard for what?
So let me try. So a standard like rules on how like devices can communicate. So for instance, before the OSI model, let's say Mac computers, let's say for instance, if I buy like an HP printer, I cannot use it on Mac like devices. For instance, if I have like a Mac device and an HP printer, there was no sort of set of rules that those devices can communicate in order for me to print, let's say, my document. But after the OSI model was put in place to set those kind of standard rules in which these devices can communicate, became easier for a Mac user to be able to use an HP printer to print.
Awesome. All right, guys. Now, do you know why the OSI model was established? Yes.
Yes.
Why was it established? So that there's a set standard for everyone. So for instance, for manufacturers of software and machines, so that everyone can be able to follow the same standard. So that when I manufacture my device, it doesn't only work if I have make like Jonathan said, if I do have a printer and it's an HP printer, it can be able, and I do have a Mac, those two devices should be able to communicate with each other. They have to use the same protocols. So they're made by two different manufacturers, but guess what? They have to communicate to each other. They have to be able to interoperate with each other so that they can be able to communicate and use the same protocols to communicate with each other. What are the layers of the OSI model? Is it break time?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Let me say Google timer.
I know Jonathan will keep going.
All right. So guys, yeah, we shall go through this after the break. Okay. Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Just so you guys know exactly what we're gonna be doing for the next couple of weeks.
Bismarck, I know you're tired. You guys, can
Yes, sir.
you put your cameras on? I mean, this helps us, you know, kind of like,
Yeah, it's
because
on.
right now I can see most of you guys have not put your cameras on, you know.
Oh, pretty much we're gonna be doing we're gonna start doing file and print sharing. I'm gonna walk you guys through on how to share files over 2 computers on your local network. And you can also share your devices with like other computers that you can access your file from any location where you are. Or even when you're on your network, you can do like a couple of stuff like, I mean, share files from one computer to the other one without even have to use a USB stick to, like, you know, you want to copy this file over to this device. You just need to like do file and print sharing. And print sharing is the other part of it, which you can share your printers that you have on your network. You don't have to set up the printer on actually your machine. If you want to print, you can print from a different from your computer with that same printer, but the printer is not installed on your device, but it's installed on a different device. So long as you share it on the network, it's pretty much easy for you to go down through that. And then the other one we're gonna do, I believe we've done file systems. I don't really know if we've gone into file system like Ditto, but we're gonna get more into file system too as well. And we're gonna do, I'm gonna show you guys how to install Active Directory and also configure it as a domain server. It's for it to work as an Active Directory as a domain server. And that being so, it's just clue that you guys are gonna use Active Directory for, like, you know, create users accounts, set group policies, password authentication, because that's mostly the main function for Active Directory. Active Directory is mostly like companies use them for like to create users accounts, set up permissions, group policies, or like who can access what and who belongs to what department and who is has the right to access what folder or not on the company network. So those are most of the things. And then the domain controller also, it controls like the domains of like what domain you belong under. Like, let's say if you're in a company, they know what department you're on and what access right that you have. Some of the things are for domain controller too as well. And then we're gonna go into, I mean, I'm gonna give you guys a brief clue of Office 365 as it works, but I haven't really got that details into Office 365 because I didn't pay no mind. That was not like my specialty, but I'm just gonna give you guys like a rundown of what I know about ideas that I have about Office 365, the admin console side of it. It pretty much works the same as Active Directory as well, but it's more advanced than Active Directory. Because creating a user account, just a clue, creating a user's account in Active Directory, you have to do a 2-step to 365. Let's say you create an account for users in the Active Directory, you have to go create a user mailbox for it to associate with that account. That's what they call the 2 steps. That means you create the account in Active Directory, and then you go again and create another Office 365, Office Microsoft Outlook mailbox for that user in the admin console. But whereas with 365, once you create the account in Office 365 admin console, it automatically creates a user account in Active Directory. So if you do it from Office 365 platform, it easily creates a user account in Active Directory automatically because they are both connected. But whereas if you create the account in Active Directory, you have to go again now to Office 365 admin console and create a user account there. So that's just like the way they make it to like seems more simple for everybody. It's like, you know, easier enough to go about. I'm going to show you guys that, but I don't really have one of like the admin consoles. But I'm going to try to see if I can set it up this week to see if I can get it through. But if not, I'll just walk you guys through how to do it because that's not really what we'll focus on. that you're just gonna do, I mean, in your workplace, you can see them, see what somebody's doing about it. You'll be like, yes, I have an understanding of what exactly the person is doing. Well, I mean, because they have like a whole admin that manages just the 365 admin console. That's all they do. They do migrations of like mailboxes, migration of like PST files to the cloud. That's what admin console, the Office 365 admin console does. What else? They create users account. They can migrate users account from on-prem to the cloud. When I say on-prem, that means like the servers that they have on site. They can migrate the user mailbox, because a company might have like almost 5,000 mailboxes. You cannot just migrate those mailboxes one at a time. No. So what the admin console does is that they create like a script. They write a script and automate it in that 365 that runs generates, like it has a certain amount of users. You can set that, okay, you can set the script to be like, let's say 500 users every day. It migrates 500 users mailboxes to the cloud every day. Migrate 500 users to the cloud every day. And you have to set a certain time, because you don't want to do it during working hours. First of all, it's going to slow traffic of flow of network in the day. And people are busy that day. They don't want like no slow of like internet and stuff like that. So these are some of the things that the 365 does. But we're going to go more detail into when we start next week. And then we're going to do, we're going to get an understanding of like RDP, how to remote login from one computer to another. I know you guys downloaded Party, and then there's WinSCP, which is also for file transfer as well. And I know, but RDP mostly, it comes with them on Windows machines. RDP is like a standard that comes when you install on a Windows machine, from Home Edition to Pro and Enterprise. Those comes with. Then I'm just going to give you guys a brief understanding of like how ticketing system works from what that I've used, because those are some of the things that you're going to use at your work site, at your job site. There's so many ticketing systems out there that you guys are going to see. There's Citrix. I think it's Citrix. The one we use right now is called Sharewell. There's Sharewell. There's so many. I can't even remember some of the names, but I know a lot of them. That if I see them, I will know that this is a ticketing system. And that's how you get your daily job going when you're in a workplace. That's how you receive your troubleshooting, your problems from users. Like users are going to always put ticket in, and then it comes to you. It's assigned to your department, or it's assigned to a different department. Because the ticketing system, every department has theirs. You have infrastructure, you have ISP. ISP have their own ticketing system, which is still the same ticketing system. But the only difference is that when somebody puts in a ticket, it goes to whatever department that requires that assistance. Like let's say, okay, if I put a system, I have a problem with the networking, it's going to go to infrastructure and networking services. That's their own department where the ticket is going to go to. Because when you put in the ticket, it asks you to specify what department you want to go to. And some of them don't specify like that, because why? We have the first level, they call them the first level help desk support. We call them SDRs. Those are service desk assistants. What they do is like they take your ticket now from your complaint that you've given, they open a ticket and then assign it out to the different levels, because you have a level 3 support, you have level 2 support, and level 1 support are the service desk people. All they do is like, if they cannot troubleshoot that issue, they escalate the issue to level 2 people. If level 2 people cannot troubleshoot the issue, they escalate the ticket to level 3. That's how it works at the workplace. That's how the chain of command goes. So that's some of the things that you're going to see in a ticket system. If you see a ticket comes to you, if let's say, for instance, you're level 3 support, IT support in your company, if a ticket gets to you, that means it's already bypassed the service desk, bypass level 1, level 2, and then gets to you. Now, if you cannot troubleshoot, if you cannot figure out or solve the problem as well, that's when now you escalate it now to your boss, which is like now like the higher ups, and it keeps going. That's how it goes on the chain of command. Sometimes the ticket might go all the way until end to like infrastructure, ISPN, and so on. That's how it just goes. So these are some of the things that we're going to do in just on the understanding of ticketing system. But I can't really like, I'm going to show you a couple of them that we have out there. You can always Google search. You're going to see a whole lot of ticketing system that they have. It depends on what ticketing system your company uses. Because you go to different companies, you might have been in this company, they use Sharewell. You go to this different company, they use a different thing. They have so many different ones. All you just got to do is get the understanding of like how the ticketing system works. Like when I was at my company, the first time I got there, I never knew this ticketing system that we use right now. It's just with the process of time that I get to understand it, just like that, and I get to understand it. And what else are we gonna do? We have rate. We have to learn how rates, like the different types of rate. There's rate 0, there's rate 1, and rate 5. Those are the most 3 that we're gonna learn in Windows. That's the only 3 that we're gonna learn in Windows. There's rate 0, rate 1, and rate 5. But for Linux, Linux has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think there's rate. I think it's they have so many different ones. But for Windows, we're just gonna learn just those 3 because are the most 3 important ones that we have to do with in Windows side of it. But when you get to Linux, that's when you start getting to like the understanding of like the more of the rates that we have. And I believe that should be it for the Windows side. But I mean, if there's any other thing that I would definitely want to add along the line as I'm going, as we're doing this rundowns, I'm gonna add it as well. Because there's so many things that we cannot all cover during this Windows process because we have a short frame of time that we're trying to finish this course, which is an intensive course. We have a very minimum time, so I want to try to like give you guys just the most important part that have been needed and some things that you're gonna see on your day-to-day basis at work. Those are the ones that we're more focused on. But there are so many things that it has to do with Windows that as you're working with time, as you start working in your job, you're gonna see more new things that you're gonna learn every day. Things that you'd never learn in class, but you're gonna learn during the process of working. Because I say the learning never stops. Even if you get to the age of like 70 years old, you're still learning every day. Like even me right now at my job, at my position, I'm still learning. There are things that I don't understand. And never be shy to ask questions from your colleagues at work because you don't know everything, they don't know everything. So don't expect that because you're new to this or they think that because you were hired for this position and you feel like, oh, everything that comes to you, you're supposed to know it. No. Never be shy to ask questions to your fellow colleagues that are at work because they have been there before you. They say the best answer to at your workplace, other than you getting fired, if you don't want to get fired, ask questions. Always ask questions if you don't want to get fired. Ask questions. The reason why I say you don't want to get fired, ask questions is because why? You don't want to go claim that you know how to do this thing and then go ruin it. Because once you ruin it, they wouldn't have even asked you like, oh, what were you trying to do? The first things first, they're going to put you out of the door. And then before they start figuring out how to put that thing back to where it was before figuring out a new problem. So if you see something that you don't know, just try and possible. If you think that you cannot do it, ask questions from your colleagues. Even if it's as simple as what? If you Google search it, you cannot find it, ask questions from your fellow colleagues. They're going to help you out because they've been there before you and now you're new to the position. Even though you know things, it does not mean that you can do it. You can always ask them that have been there before you. They'll be like, oh, yeah, you have to do this, you have to do this to get to this place. As simple as that. That's what I was, on my job, I was just thrown out like a wolf in there. And I started thinking on my own, I was like, okay, let me ask questions from people that have been here before. And I keep asking questions. And now I know so many things that I never knew before when I started working there. And those are some of the things that will not get you fired because when you ask questions about something, you know how to get to that point. You don't want to just claim that, oh, yes, I know this position, I've done this in the past, and I want to keep doing it. So those are just a rundown of what we're going to start doing next week. But I believe what I'm going to start with next week is going to be, I'm going to start with the basics, which is just file and print sharing. I'll show you guys how to do that, how to configure your machine to share files within 2 machines. And then we're going to go into Active Directory and domain controllers to set up those. Those, you're going to need to install your VM and you have to have your Windows server. I think I'm going to go with 2016 or 2012. I'll do 2012 servers so you guys can best understand it. We'll do 2012 because it's similar with 2016, but I know job places now, they use like 2016, there's 2019 servers too as well. So those are the ones that we're gonna use is 2016 and 2012. I'll show you guys how to install Active Directory, add roles, which is the first role we're gonna add is gonna be the Active Directory and also the domain controller. Those are the first roles we're gonna add when you install your Windows servers. And then from there, we'll go now. I think I can get you guys just a clue into Office 365. But the admin console, I don't really have the admin console for the Office 365 because it's most enterprise ones and you have to pay for them to get those. But I'll just show you how it looks and how you can maneuver yourself around and get stuff done. So pretty much that's going to be what we're going to start from next week. And I hope you guys have understand the network concept because I'm not going to talk again about network next week. Since Charles is finishing everything about networking today, you guys have to be ready. It's like, if I say this is what this has to be done, you have to ask me, like, oh, what was the network configuration for this to get to this one? You guys have to have that understanding. Thank you, guys. Charles, are you there?
Okay, thanks, Kingsley. All right, so what we're going to do right now, we're going to go ahead and do, because, so what I'm going to do, Kingsley, so I'll need about 20 minutes next weekend. What I'm expecting from you guys, the binary video, I'd like you guys to go through the binary, the assignment I gave you about the binary. And after going through the assignment for the binary, you should be able to understand the part for the classless inter-domain routing that I was trying to explain today, and how we get those hosts. So during this week, go through the binary video. If I'm not able, if Kingsley, I'm not able to do it next weekend, then I'll do it during the Wednesday class. But I know most people don't come for the Wednesday class. So right now we're doing some interview questions. And I just wanted us to go ahead and do some interview prep. So I know, Kingsley, you've done some questions with them. So whichever questions you have, you can fire away, and we can, guys, can you share your cameras so that we can see who is on and who is off? Because right now I can only see Jarvis on. Or if you're
on, there's Bismarck, and then there's Jonathan.
All right, so I'm just going to ask only people who have their cameras on. Bismarck, I know, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know it's tough. Can you get some coffee?
Yes, sir.
But you're still seated.
I stepped away to get a cup of water right quick, so that was why my camera was off.
All right, cool. All right, Bismarck.
Yes, sir.
Get a drink, get some coffee, get something so that we can, we can go ahead and, get into a comfortable position, because if you're laying all the way down, you'll be, you'll doze off, you'll sleep.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I understand that, of course, IT practices are the same worldwide, but is there anything in this course that is specific to the US and different from the EU? Are there any things that we can come across that can vary?
I don't think there's any difference. As an IT technician, it's always going to be the same thing. You walk everywhere, and it's going to be the same thing.
OSI model is everywhere.
Okay.
So
No, I understand. I'm just talking about like some
the walk-wise.
No, some kind of because I was reading something about some protocols, and then they were talking. Mr. was talking about this is specific to the US, so it was some wireless network things. So I was just asking if you can come across things that might be different.
There will be applications, because there are definitely going to be applications that are like based. It can be installed just in the US, and some that can be installed just out of the US. My company, we have a branch in Canada. So the application that we install on the machines and the systems that works in Canada, they're all different. It's not all applications that we use here in the US that we install them on the machines in Canada, because they have policies that are being said that, oh, this application cannot work out of like the country from a different country. So those are some of the things that you will see. But the servers, it depends on where the headquarters is. Your servers are always going to be in one location. It doesn't matter wherever this company has a branch, but the servers are always going to be in one location. Let's say, for instance, my company, I work at the headquarters, which is here in Massachusetts. And the servers are actually where we work. But the Canadian people office, they access everything from here. But by them doing so, they have to use the VPN. They have a remote login that they use, mostly remote servers, because that's what the money they use. they don't use like the physical, they don't have access to like the physical servers, because we have remote servers and we also have the physical one. But some of the physical servers, they have a clone. They have a clone which are like the remote servers, which everything that we save on the physical server, it clones it on the remote server. That's why, which gives them the Canadian people access now to them to access stuff from there. So same like you that is in Sweden. You can have your company, whatever company you work from, the headquarters might not even be where in Sweden. The main office might be maybe in England or somewhere in London, or maybe somewhere in Australia or other different countries. But you still access the all data that you guys work with is still accessible from there. But there are some applications that you guys will be using in Sweden that the people in Australia uses different. So that's just exactly the problem. Because sometimes when we want to install some applications, I'll ask you, I can tell if this user is in Canada or the user is in US, because the profile which is being created in Active Directory, all this profile have been shown in there. You can go to Active Directory, you can access the name, see all the profile, you can see what department they work at, you can see the organization they are under. When I say organization, that means the department. It might be IT department, it might be HR department, it might be infrastructure, it might be facility department, it might be one of those departments. So you see all the departments that are under. That's why Active Directory gives you all that information that you can tell about user. You can also, in Active Directory, you also have where you can, that's how they terminate the user. When the user is, when they say that somebody is terminated from a company, that's where you go delete their account. If you have just a contractor that's working for that company, that's where you set a contractor account and you set the account limitation. Let's say the person has just 6 months to work for that company. You set the person's account that before the last month of that, let's say the 25th of April. By 25th of April, the user's account should expire. But if it's a full-time employee, you go in Active Directory, that's where you're still gonna set the user's account like this is a full-time employee. There's a place where it says password never expires. And that's where you set it up. The user password is never gonna expire. But companies don't do that because why? You have policies. We make the users to always change their password every 90 days. So every 3 months, we set it in Active Directory in a way that you're gonna get a pop-up on your machine that your password is about to expire. You need to renew your password. Just because why, for security reasons, when you go out there, you're working remotely, you might have put in your password, somebody gets your password, or you might have a download an application on your computer and a hacker can spy into your machine. So we're just trying to create, like, they just try to make like firewalls and possibilities for ways that people cannot get hacked, or companies cannot get, people cannot get data from companies. So they always make you change your password every 3 months or maybe 2 months, or depending on how the company sets the policy. So all those things are being done in Active Directory. That have you can see the user's account, tell what department the user is in, tell what location the user is in. It can maybe be within the US, maybe in Texas. The user is working from a Texas office. The user is working from maybe a Tampa office, or it can still better be the user is working from a Canadian office. So you see in that user's account, it tells you that this user is out of state. And it tells you all the group policies that the users are on that they're in. So that's how you can see some of those things. Like if you see a user's name, maybe let's say a ticket comes to you, you don't know the user. You want to go look for their phone number to give them a call, company phone number. You can still find that in Active Directory. If you go to Active Directory, just put in the user's name there. I'm going to show you guys how where you can find those. And you can also create like machines in the company, like all the machines in the company, they have a work group that is in Active Directory where you see all the machines. You can delete a machine from there. You can remove a machine. You can change a machine. You can clone a machine from there. You can see what status the machines, any machine is in from Active Directory. So all those things are like, it's like the backbone of like the whole company. Like any machine that connects on that network, it stores in Active Directory. So you see all those things from there. Like anything you want to access about any user or any computer in that infrastructure of a company, you'll find it right there. Did I clarify the question, Jarvis?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, thanks. All right, guys. You guys have done a bit of Windows, right?
Yes.
You guys have done some Windows. The silence. Okay, what's the difference between the domain and the work group?
Can you repeat that question?
What is the difference between a domain and a work group?
Jonathan, is Jonathan around?
I think Jonathan is not here.
Wow, he always helps us with the questions, the tough questions.
He's right there.
Hey, Jonathan, we're waiting on you. So the question was, what's the difference between a domain and a work group? Over to you.
What was the question again, please?
No problem. The question was,
yeah, you go ahead and tell him what the question is. Yeah.
What's the difference between a domain and a work group?
Have we done that?
Oh no, I was relying on you, Jonathan. Don't do this to us.
Okay, have you guys introduced computers to a network?
From what I understand, probably by a domain, maybe domain has to do with like a network and or like yeah, probably like a network and maybe a work group, probably like a subset of a network. I don't know, but
all right, that's a good try. All right, guys. So a domain is a client server network. So you're going to be hearing concepts like introducing your system to a domain. I don't know, I think you guys have not done it from the Windows side, but when you get to Linux, you're going to be introducing servers.
Yeah, what are we doing actually next week? I'll show them how to introduce the system into it, because that also fall on that AD.
Okay. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why they've not yet heard about it. So guys, yeah, a domain is a client server network or relationship. So you have all these computers. For instance, if your company is techspace.com, or you can have all the servers or all the computers that belong to TechSpace being able to access the resources that TechSpace has for those servers. And the way they can do it is by introducing those servers or those computers to the TechSpace domain. And the way you do that is you configure on the you see how that is configured next when you get to in Active Directory, when you do it in our Active Directory, and then a work group. So all the computers use, like, can someone go to control panel and then go to your Internet Explorer? Do you guys see that yellow folder on your computer down there? There's a yellow folder. Internet File Explorer, the yellow folder down here. Let me share my screen. I think that should be able to. Did you guys see this folder right here? Yes?
Yes.
All right, click on it. What happens when you click on it? Does it bring you to this page? Do you see anything like this PC?
yes.
All right, let's go to right click on this PC and say properties. What do you guys see?
I see
On your computers.
specs, the specs of my device.
Do you see anything like system, computer name, work group settings? Did you right click and say properties? Did you right click? So what do you see? What do you see under computer name? Do you see anything like work group? All right, guys, you're seeing my screen. Let me give you an example of what is on my screen. So I'm using my work laptop. So I introduced this laptop to the domain, to the work domain. and the work domain is aliaswire.com. So if this computer was not introduced to a domain, it would be still under a work group. And what a work group is basically a peer-to-peer computer network, where it was just a peer-to-peer network, computer network kind of configuration that is set up. But for this right here, that means this computer right here is set up to communicate with the work server. And if there are any policies that are configured on that server, just like how Kingsley explained, those policies are enforced. And this computer will follow those as a member of the AD, will follow those policies that have been configured. Can someone share their screen so that I can see if I can show you guys how to identify if your computer is on a domain or in a work group?
You have to give me permission. Let me share. Give me permission. Let me share mine. You have to give me permission.
Okay.
Yeah, make me my co-host then.
Let me do that. Kingsley, where are you? You're right here. More, make co-host, yes. All right, Kingsley, you're the co-host right now. You're co-host. Kingsley, are you able to?
Oh, yes, yes.
All right.
Sorry, I was on mute. Let me just give me 1 second. Let me set this up.
So guys, when I do a step-by-step instruction and I'm sharing my screen, I need you guys to be able to do the same.
All right, so you guys can see my screen, right? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, I can see your screen. All right, guys, were you guys able to go to File Explorer and you went to this PC and you?
So I can do search File Explorer right here. I click on it. It's gonna open. You go to this PC, right? Click on it. You do properties. So when you do properties, you see how? Let me just enlarge this. So mine shows you here. This is my device name right here. It gives me all like the information that I shown there. If you see this one is not a, let's see.
Actually, this is go to on the right. I think I explained this last week. Advanced system settings right here to your right, all the way to the right, where is related settings.
Oh yeah, I gotta minimize this. Yeah. Advanced system settings.
You see? No, close. Yeah, go under computer name, all the way top to the left.
Yep. So
okay. Yep. I expressed this last week and I was looking for it. Yeah.
So you guys can see mine. It says here, my work group here, it still says work group. So I don't have a domain yet. But if I want to introduce this to a network, that's what I'm going to change. I can send, because I just changed the name for the computer. But I can always make it to introduce to a network. Things are not advanced. Let's see now.
What do you want to change it to?
I was showing them how to able to introduce it to a domain.
Yeah, where did that change? Where there's change down?
Right here.
Yep.
So if you click change, you see where it says work group here? Mine just says work group now because why? I haven't introduced it to any domain because this is not my work computer. If it was my work computer, you would have seen it, it will be on this one. But if you want to make it a member of a domain of a company, you have to have that company domain's name. All you're just gonna do, you click here, you enter the domain name.com, which is like you see, for instance, if I want to introduce the machine to that Charles domain, I'll do the alienware.com here. And when I hit OK, it's gonna ask me to restart my machine. And I have to be on that Charles network for it to take place. If I'm not on Charles Wi-Fi or whatever domain, or I mean the network that they are on, it's never gonna take effect. Because I have to be on the same network, the same domain controller. So the domain controller can see my machine, be like, okay, yes, this machine is trying to add to this domain. Let me accept him from that. But if I'm not on that network, it's never gonna go because it's gonna, my own domain controller here is gonna see it, be like, okay, I don't recognize this name that you're trying to put in. All right, well, I cannot find this from anywhere. And it's just gonna give you an error message. Until when I'm on the same network with Charles, So for now, I'm just gonna leave it on my work group because it's just a work group, which is just a machine that I just configured. I don't have a domain here to introduce it to. So that's how you introduce your Windows machine to a domain. But with Linux, introduction to domain is different. It's very, 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 very.
Sure. All right, guys, do you know what you've just done right now? You've just answered one of the most important questions that you're going to do as system admins. You've learned how to introduce a system to a domain.
The Windows system, yeah.
The Windows system to a domain. So a recruiter asks you, have you introduced a system to a domain? Right now, you should be able to say, yes, I've introduced the Windows system to a domain, because you know the step-by-step, how to go about it step-by-step from start to the end, to the time that a system is introduced to a domain. All right, guys, how many layers do we have in the OSI model? Emeka, are you there? Give me the layers of the OSI model. What's layer 5 of the OSI model?
Yeah, I have to ask them not to give you the layer. Just say what is layer 4? That's supposed to be like a quick answer. Like what is layer 4? What is layer 7? Because you go on interview will just ask like, okay, what is layer 3 of the OSI model? That should be a question that you can answer in 2 seconds. You don't even have to be like layer 3. No. He's just gonna know that, okay, you're trying to study, you're trying to think. Well, that's something you should know. Layer 3 is low, and they go from up top to bottom. So application layer, which you think that is the first layer, no, that's layer 7 instead. So the pyramid goes like this, opposite side. So layer 7 is up, goes layer 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Layer 4 is connection.
Is what?
Connections.
No, it's not correct.
Transport.
Yeah, layer 4 is transport. I don't say connection.
All right, guys. Right now you should be able to answer a question like, tell me more about what you've done in your past experiences. So who would like to give that a shot? Tell me more about your experience. So right now I need someone to tell me what you've done from the first day you started and all the things you've learned and how you've been able to implement those skills that you've learned. So I'm an interviewer and I'm telling you, okay, Emeka or Jude or Ola or Caesar or Jonathan, tell me more about your experience as an IT professional. How would you answer that question? So let's start from I don't know. I don't have all the names listed out. So tell me more about your experience. Who wants to go first? That means this is what you're going to do. From the time you started class, you are going to tell me what you've done and how you're going to give me an overview, not going into details, an overview of what you've done and how you've implemented those skills and maybe helped clients. Who would like to give it a shot? Tell me more about your experience as a system admin or as a Windows admin or as a Windows/network admin. For instance, today we looked at troubleshooting using the OSI model, and that's something that you could include in that. Ola, let's start. Tell me more about your experience.
Oh, I saw Jonathan on mute, so I thought it was about to go. So Jonathan? Let me see.
Ola,
Ola, tell me more about your experience at TechSpace. At TechSpace, as a company you worked at. Tell me more about your experience with all the 5 years of experience that you've attained.
I've been in the field for over 5 years, and I'm very versatile with different computer models. In my last job, I was able to, set up the computers on the systems network, assign them to domains. I was able to troubleshoot any issues happening and connecting different computers to the network. I was also able to replace NIC cards and find out if there are any problems with the software is installed. on the computers. We do a lot of work on the level 5 of the OSI model. So that's everything. Any other questions?
So Ola, you have said that you have helped to troubleshoot issues that occurred when you're at work. How did you go about the process of troubleshooting those issues that you're experiencing at work? And which kind of
It
issues,
depends.
and which kind of issues were you experiencing or did you face?
So sometimes we have downtimes where some of our technicians are unable to work. So one of the biggest issue I resolved recently was when the server was down. We had to go and find out exactly what was wrong with the server. Myself and a few of our team members went to the server room. First of all, we tried to do the loop back search to make sure that everything on the server is working right, and then we walked from there to find out exactly the area where we're having an issue. We finally realized that it was the RJ45 cable that was broken off from the primary server in the room.
All right, that was good. Do you know what happened? You just use the OSI model. So
Yeah.
you at first you're moving away. So but so someone needs to know that you have a methodology when you're troubleshooting. So methodology is like you're trying to identify the problem. So what did you do? You said, okay, you can even say I use the concept of the OSI model when I'm resolving issues at work. So that's how you can even tell the recruiter, I use the concept of the OSI model when I'm resolving issues at work, where I start with the physical layer. I just make sure all the connections are intact, all the cables are plugged in the server. So after that, you move from I verify that the server was up, the server was running, there was no physical defect on the server whatsoever. And after that, you move from one layer to another, trying to go from that to the time or to the layer where you were able to isolate the exact problem. So always have the concept of the OSI model when you talk about troubleshooting. Even when you're helping your users in your environment to resolve issues or through ticketing or through a ticketing system, always make sure you use the OSI model to limit yourself from going astray. So Ola, that was good. That was amazing. So next, Bismarck. Tell me more about your experience at TechSpace. What? Tell me more about your experience at TechSpace.
Okay.
So, how many years of experience do you have right now?
I have 15 years of experience.
All right, Bismarck. Tell me more about your experience at TechSpace.
On a day-to-day basis, I, together with other members of our TechSpace team, encountered numerous issues of troubleshooting, beginning from issues with a physical layer where we were able to diagnose.
First, just a moment. You're going into the theory without stating a practical issue. So you first said something which is practical before giving them a theory. So you have to, for instance, you have to say something maybe like a user had a specific issue. A user was not able to log into their account. A user didn't have access to the internet, or a user's application had failed. So that when you state it, you're going to limit. Okay, if it's application, you're going to talk about the application layer. You're going to talk about maybe if the application wasn't configured correctly. That means you're going to use the application layer of the OSI model. If it's internet related, that means you're going to use things like DNS, ping, command to use the network portion of the OSI model. So don't go into theory so much. Go give them a practical issue that you experienced, and based on the practical issue that you get to experience, tell them how you use the concept of the OSI. You don't need to go and tell them exactly which layer of the OSI model you used, but just giving a brief description of how the OSI model was used to resolve that particular problem is important. So one, you start with a specific problem, because today when we're doing troubleshooting, what did we say? We said the first step is to What was the first step in troubleshooting? Identify the problem. So let's go ahead. Tell me more about your experience at TechSpace.
Yes, I was able to identify a user was not able to log into his user account, and as the user was not able, I was able to use a layer of the OSI model to troubleshoot the problem of the user, and got resolved.
So it was authentication. The user is not able to log in. So which layer did you use of the which follow-up question from the interviewer? So you say that a user had issues with logging to the account. Which layer of the OSI model did you use to resolve that issue?
Layer 5.
And what's layer 5?
Layer 5, the session layer of the OSI model, is what was used to resolve the issue.
And what was the exact issue? Because you just told me that you resolved the issue, right?
Yeah, inability to log into the account. So we're able to.
And which kind of account was it? Was it a computer account? Was it a domain account? Was it an online account? Which type of account was it?
Computer account.
By computer, you mean logging into their desktop or their laptop?
Desktop, laptop.
Is that which error did they get when they tried to log in? Did you ask the user?
No.
Is it because just the user had forgotten their password and did you have to reset the password of the user instead?
Yes.
So was it more of a password issue and not a session establishment issue, and the OSI model didn't have anything to do with it?
So I cannot continue.
Guys, that's how interviews are going to be. That's how interviews are going to be. So that's how they'll be. You should be able to be specific, know what the problem was, and be able to, if it's something to do with authentication into an account, it's authentication. So I know you guys don't have a breadth of experience right now, and it's okay to kind of like talk about within the range of the experience that we have. Does someone else want to go ahead and tell me more about the experience up to this moment in time, what you've learned so far, or not even what you've learned?
Let me try.
All right, Jonathan, tell me more about your experience at TechSpace.
Hi, thank you for taking some time to talk to me about this position. So currently, the systems admin at TechSpace. So what our job involves is helping the user with either installing the right software that they would need for their work, or troubleshooting troubleshooting. So my day-to-day activity involves these two processes. So I quite remember just yesterday, a user came into the IT department and did mention that her laptop doesn't work. So as a systems admin, first of all, I had to configure like a new laptop and sign in with his username and password and give it to him, and went further on to do like a hard drive diagnostic test to find out if there is any problem that was within my scope of work. I realized that when I ran the hardware diagnostic, all the hardware was intact. So I looked up the serial number and called and find out if their particular laptop is under warranty. Then I called the company that manufactures the laptop and just told them about the problem, that was with the laptop, and they just sent like a box, and I package a laptop and send it to, let's say, Lenovo. So this is one of my tasks at work.
All right, Jonathan, you say that you ran a hardware diagnostics. Which tools did you use to run those hardware diagnostics on that laptop?
I used the Vintage tool because my company, we use the HP, the Lenovo laptops.
All right, you took me to something that I've never used before, so that's a good thing. I don't even know the Vintage tool. so you're in from all my follow-up questions. All right, that's a good one.
I was lucky.
Sometimes when you get to when there's a tool you have used in an environment and the recruiter has never heard about it, or the IT manager has not never, but doesn't have familiarity with the tool, sometimes that'll be a good thing for them not to have follow-up question. So, guys, the other thing that we have done, we have configured static IP addresses, right?
Yes.
That's a big thing. Configuring static IP addresses on servers, because guess what? We say that, for instance, servers do serve information to multiple users. That means when I assign a static IP address to a server or to a client, that means it's fixed. It has a fixed or permanent IP. That means the next time a user who needs that resource and they want to access that resource, they don't want to find that the IP address of that server has changed. So if it's dynamic, guys, remember we said the dynamic, it is leased out for a particular period of time, maybe like 2 weeks. And after that, it is renewed with a different IP address. Bama, can you
ask him what?
Bama, can you mute yourself? I don't know if I'm able to mute from here. Okay, I'm able to mute from here. All right, guys, so that's one thing that, for instance, right now you can talk about, and because it's important in a production environment for someone to be able to configure a static IP address on a server. Who else? Caesar, do you want to give it a shot? Tell me more about yourself and what you've done so far in the tech space.
Well, I've been a system admin for the tech space for about a year and some months now. Our day-to-day activities kind of like we save our clients like whenever they have issue with their laptop. For instance, just of recent, a client walked up to like the IT department, complain about unable to connect to the Wi-Fi. Before leaving work yesterday, he said he didn't have no issue. So whenever he like brought it up, I tried just to see if it was connected. I was unable. So what I did, I went ahead and assigned that particular client a new laptop so that I would like really take deep down into it. So as the client left, I tried to see if maybe like the NIC was connected or no, the NIC was on or stuff like that. So whenever I did that, I went over there to check to see if the NIC is connected. I discovered, yeah, the NIC was on. So I just went ahead and, no, I discovered like the NIC was off. So I just went ahead and turned it on and then gave the computer back to the server, to the client.
All right, so another tip is start from the overview before going into specifics.
Okay.
So for instance, we have talked about OSI model, we talked about troubleshooting. We have talked about topologies. We have talked about hardware, different kind of hardware. So under hardware, that could be purchasing hardware as an IT admin. That's going to be one of your roles. So we have talked about hardware, so you can talk about purchasing the hardware. And then under that, you're going to be specific and say, we were, for instance, doing an infrastructure upgrade and had to purchase because we're replacing our infrastructure with a more from for instance, you can be hard disk drives to SSD, and you had to purchase like CAT 6E cables, because we're going to step up your network speeds from maybe 1 GB to 10 GBs. So under every topic you've done, give it to them as an overview. So you have purchased hardware equipment. Which kind of hardware equipment have you purchased? Laptops. I mean, you've purchased your own laptop. That's one thing you can do based on certain specifications. What else have you done? The cabling and the Cat6 cables and all that, and all those cables, you talk about that. And then you give an overview of like every topic that you have covered. Like I highlight, I don't give you the details. I give the interviewer the highlights of what I've done. I don't go straight into straight into the details of what I did, because it's going to limit me, and it's going to make the interviewer go deeper into that field. And if it's something that I've not really grounded myself into, it's going to be challenging. So for every topic that we have done, if, for instance, we have looked at IP address classes, you can talk about subnetting. After we get that, after I finish clarifying on that, that's something that you can also talk about when you are talking about your experience. So whichever topic we have done, you just give them a high level of what we've done. You don't go into details. So that's one of the things that I would encourage you guys to do. I think we should do this often. I think this is going to be an interesting session that I think we should include, because the more you talk about what you've done, the more you practice and fail, the better you're going to become at this. And sometimes, or most times, people don't get jobs because they're really good at what they do. I've had people who don't know what to do, but they can talk about stuff and get an opportunity, because right now you need your foot in there. And when you get your foot in there, I'm not saying you shouldn't practice. You should practice to talk and you don't practice your hands-on skills. I'm not saying you should do that, but you should be able to express yourself and your hands-on skills, so that you can be able to express what you've learned. And when you get to do that, you'll be more marketable. You should be able to be more competitive. All right, Jervis, tell me more about your experience at TechSpace and what you've done in your past as an IT professional.
Yeah, actually, I've been working at TechSpace for the past 2 years as a systems administrator, and just very recently, we had an issue with our network security.
First go overview. So just give me an overview. So by overview, just give me the Jervis, do you have someone in the area? I know you have a kid. I know I've been there before. Yeah. So what you do is you give us an overview. Instead of going straight into a specific, you talk about the different areas or the different things you have done before. So for instance, I was talking about, for instance, from the hardware, you talk about, okay, I purchased hardware based on certain configurations. You've done things like memory, you've done things like hard disk, hard drives. So you talk about that and give a highlight. And then after that, you come to setting up computer systems. You talk about things like topologies. You just give an overview of how maybe you had to draw out diagrams. You just give an overview about how you did the logical representations of your entire network in a diagrammatic representation. So each area that we have talked about, you should be able to just have a one-liner every area, and you practice it. Guys, you look at yourself in a mirror and you practice. You practice. You look at yourself in a mirror and you practice. It could be just for 5 minutes every day, but after 1 month, you should be able to, your memory will be like lightning fast in talking about what you've done. So, Jervis, let's go one more time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. I worked at TechSpace as a systems administrator for 2 years. So we're very customer centric and made sure we satisfied all our clients, which were the other departments which wanted our services. For example, we always supplied them with very high efficient laptops with at least a minimum of 8 gigahertz RAMs and hard disk of at least 1 terabyte. And we used Star's network topology, and we ensured that our offices had effective communication, and the network was able to we were able to have network access in every part of our building. So we installed multiple access points through that, and we also made sure that our network as overall was very secure. So we installed a firewall in our system. And just very recent, we actually had a network hack, which we detected in the system, and we did some troubleshooting on that, and we realized that that's using our OSI model. We realized that that's a layer 3 issue. So we focused on having firewalls set up on all areas of our network to prevent unauthorized access.
All right. I know I want to go into details because if your firewall wasn't set up to stop unauthorized access in the first place, someone will know you have not worked in the IT space, but I know you guys are just starting off. So what we're doing right now is just like being able to express ourselves and being able to talk. But when you're talking about your experience, don't use we did this, we did so you are part of the team, and on that team I was able to do ABCD. So you said it from your perspective about your experience, your hands-on, because that is what someone wants to know. Which value are you bringing on board based on your experience? They're trying to determine how good of a fit are you. So when you say we and you're referring to your entire team, that is not as helpful compared to when you use something like I. You know, it's good to have the kid in the background disturbing you. That's extra practice, concentration, because most of those interviews are going to be hot at the start if you have not practiced enough. And sometimes you feel like telling the interviewer, can we just stop? I'm sorry, I applied for this job. I shouldn't have done it. So yeah, you should use an opportunity, even when there's noise in the background or if there's kids disturbing you, you try to collect your thoughts, and it's a skill that you have to learn. All right, anyone else wants to give this question a shot before we end today's session?
I have a quick question. So before you go into an interview, can we have like a brief, like 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs of things we can, especially when it's a phone interview, it's very easy to just read it off the book and you sound more eloquent that way. Or that's not a good way to start off.
Yeah, so this is what, I mean, when I was starting off, I think there's some, all right. So when I was starting off, this is what I used to do. I wouldn't say it was the best thing. I had a notepad file on my computer, and if it was a phone interview, I opened up. There's some background feedback that I'm getting. I don't know why. All right, let me try again. So if it was a phone interview, I listed my experiences and the things that I've done, and I phrased them out like I wanted to say to them, to the interviewer. So I say I was an IT/system. I don't know why I'm getting that feedback. All right, everyone, just make sure you're muted to just make sure that maybe it's not an issue from. All right. So what I did, I had. You guys can hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So I had a notepad. So what I did in the notepad, I listed my previous all the things that I'd done. So for instance, maybe I would say I was an IT slash systems admin, and some of the and some of the tasks that I did were I provisioned servers, I introduced servers to the network, I was able to configure file sharing on those servers, and I was also that's one part, introducing servers to the network. And you can also talk about things like bare metal if you're doing like servers like physical servers, and if it's VM, and you tell the recruiter some of these servers were bare metal servers, and some of them were virtual servers which are configured on VMware ESXi. So you talk about that, and that is one part. And after that, in your mind, you should have a structure. Now I've set up the server. That's the physical part. Now, what can I do with these servers? There's user management, right? Or even before user management, there's hardening of these servers. And after purchasing these servers and setting them up, I hardened these servers. By hardening, okay, now you give them what you did on hardening. What did you do in hardening? I made sure I disabled remote root login. So that's one of the things that you learn in Linux, disabling remote root login, and also configuring security in the Apache configuration files on those servers. So that's one thing that you can do. In your mind, you're like, okay, what else can I do on these servers? User management. Okay. I also made sure introduced after introducing these servers to the main, I added users in these servers, and I gave them access to network resources. So in your mind, you have a structure. I installed operating systems on these servers. I provisioned these servers. I deployed these servers with the software that these servers needed. I added users and configured policies for those users on those servers. So that part is done. And after that, you go into the application bit of it. Later on, you're going to learn about things like Apache. After that, you're like, okay, I installed Apache on these servers and I configured security on the Apache or for these servers. If there's a certain software that you use, okay, you go ahead and talk about how you configure the certain software on that server. And then after that, you talk about things like maybe AWS Linux, which is something else you'll be talking about from the Linux bit of things. So make sure that your thoughts are structured. You go from one thing to another, and one thing builds off of another. So when things are building off of each other, it makes you get that structure in your mind whereby you don't jump from one thing to the other and then you forget something along the way. So that's the tip that I would give you. But when you're starting off, yes, print it out, type it out, and rehearse it. And if it's a phone interview, have it on your screen and read it out to them. And if it's a video interview, that's when you're going to be that's when you, of course, definitely you cannot be reading it out to them if it's a video Zoom interview. But what I'm saying is, start off by your own. After a couple of phone interviews, you'll stop even looking at it. You'll be able to just talk about what you've done and be comfortable with what you've done.
Thanks a lot, Charles. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
I actually made some notes.
Yep, guys, keep on practicing. It's going to be fun when we get to that part of mocking for the interviews.
Yeah, that's why I have all your phone numbers. I'll just call you.
For a small fee of $9.99, right? Yeah, guys, do you guys have any questions? Anything else, maybe not even class related, that you want to talk about?
I think I'm just thinking ahead of the curve. Probably won't finish the class, the interview preps and the rehearsing and all that. But this was actually very helpful. It shows us where we are and how well to explain these things in an interview, in it, because it's easy to say you guys should know this in an interview, or this is an interview question. But when you don't practice or you don't say it out loud, you don't realize how far behind you are with all these things. So if we can slot this in once in a while, like, okay, in an interview, how do you explain this? It actually helps a lot. It helps us arrange these things in our brain.
All right, guys, if there's no more questions, we shall call it a day. And I'll upload the video. And then maybe next week, we shall go through the classes in the domain routing. This week, I want you guys to go through the binary. If you go through the binary, it will be easier for me to explain the remaining concept of the CIDR.
Yeah, just to ask, there was a part in the slides which you skipped.
Which part
was
today?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Go through this the binary, and then that's the part we're going to go through for about 20 minutes next week before things will over.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, have a good one. Blessings.
Thank you, Senior Gerard.